So welcome to the Unmasked Relationship Factor Series. I am AliNICOLE WOW, also known as Majesty, and back with my senior star King Celebrity-preneur protege, Tom-Tom. Tom-Tom, thank you for being back with me.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure because we always talk about these deep topics, don't we? Very common. Yeah. So, of course, we don't ever have a planned topic, so to speak. Sometimes I have a few things in mind that we could discuss, but like to just leave it open to see what comes up. As you know, our goal is always to empower others and to help them be self-empowered so that they're able to move forward in their relationship dynamics, in the best ways. So before we start getting into what possibly could be an emerging topic, I know I have one that I would like to address, and we actually talked about this in another segment that we would probably come back and revisit it. And that is around age differences within relationships, but we don't have to start there. We can talk about other things that could definitely be empowering. So you have anything, or would you like to jump in there?
Yeah, we can just start there.
Okay, all right. So we will start there. All right. So age differences within relationships, and I know a lot of people say, well, that's pretty common, no big thing. But there are still certain dynamics within those types of relationships that are things that need to be uncovered, for sure need to be unmasked. I happen to be an offspring of a huge age gap difference in relationship. There was 20 years difference between my parents. And so definitely, I know, there are dynamics around those, those types of relationships, but they can be very good, as well. So Tom-Tom, you want to jump in on anything or?
Well, I'm just going to say real quick that I'm the offspring of parents with age difference too.
Oh, okay.
But it's more like a 3.5 year difference.
Oh, that ain't that big a deal.
Right. I know, but
yeah,
a lot of people like to make a big deal out of it.
Out of 3 years? 3 years is almost like being the same age, depending on what.
Yeah, I know.
But well, see, wait a minute. Depends on wait a minute. I will go here. Depends on where we are in the age bracket, meaning like if it's, a 15-year-old and that's different. But I mean, I'm talking about in adulthood, 3 years should not be looked at as something huge.
It shouldn't, but it's double standards when it comes to it, because they don't think much of it when the man is older than the woman. But everybody got something to say when the woman is older than the man.
That right there is true. So now we will go in on that.
So that's what I was saying. With this age, this 3.5 year age difference, my mom was older than my dad.
Okay, yeah. Even that still, that's crazy. Well, I will say it, and maybe it does seem a little bit judgmental, but I think that there are times we can be fruit inspectors and kind of judge that and say, but that's a little bit insane, because we're talking about a 3-year difference. We're not talking about a 10, 15 year difference. We are talking about 3 years, 3 to 5 years. That should be really safe. Like I said, just depends on, again, the dynamics. We look at older movies with throwback movies, even like Stella Got a Groove Back, it's a 20-year difference of a woman being older than a man. And that is a double standard. So let's talk about this, because what most people don't know is that there's a lot of that's actually starting to happen. And some of it is divine, of people actually being able to connect with people who are not in that same age bracket. There's some deeper layers to that. I won't go into that right now, but it is interesting that yes, when it is a woman, people want to make a big deal, out of that. Yeah, it is interesting. On my end of being an offspring, so to speak, my father was 20 years older than my mom. And so, yeah, some interesting dynamics, that's for sure. But, one of the reasons why we want to talk about this is because in life, nothing is guaranteed. You can hook up with someone who is in your same age bracket and things not work out. And vice versa. You can hook up with someone who's older or younger and things still not work out. The most important thing is finding alignment with who's going to be right for you. And who are these God-ordained individuals, these divine individuals that are going to be your best types of covenant partnership relationships. And in saying that, when I say relationships, meaning that you may not always marry this specific person, but it could be someone you actually do need to have a relationship with because you two have something to teach each other. So Tom, your thoughts around that?
That's always true. I got cut off earlier, and I came back in the middle of your segment. Yeah, that's always true. And I always say too, if they make you happy, to the age difference, go for it.
Right. And don't worry about what society, people in society say, or just any of that. I just don't even base what is true and right for you off of any of that. I think that
because you're the one that got to live your life.
Exactly, right. And not live it through the lenses of society, the lenses of others. And even if you do get involved in that, and maybe it's not what it's cut out to be, so to speak, there would still be something that you needed to learn from that situation. But don't shy away from dating someone who's either a lot younger, a lot older, if in fact the alignment is there. I know it's easier said than done, but I mean, we look at where we are. We are in 2022, going into 2023. We should not still be having pettiness around situations, scenarios of that nature. Your thoughts, Tom?
And kind of lose the stigmas too.
Yeah, I see you kind of are cutting out here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was saying it's time to lose the stigmas too. A lot of
The
times
stigmas.
when a
Oh,
man
I
is
thought you said the signals. We lose the signal. Okay, the stigmas. Right, exactly. Yes, losing.
yeah, because it seems like when a man is with a much younger woman, people seem to think that he found somebody that he could control. And when a woman is with a man that's a pretty good bit younger than she is, then it's always the maturity issue.
Right. Yeah. And then she's looking for someone to raise or someone to mother or however, that, yeah, it can be interesting dynamics. And also interestingly, that even when a younger woman dates an older man, then she's sometimes considered to be some type of gold digger or some type of, she's not in it for the right reasons. And again, there are cases, and probably several, where that is true, but not in all. And so for those who feel their alignment with others who are in different age brackets, you just don't need to allow yourself to be hemmed up by any of these, as Tom meant, the stigmas, just, yeah, you have to do you, right, Tom?
Yeah.
Right. And so that definitely is empowerment that we want to put out there. But yeah, age is just a number. It is definitely going to depend on individuals and their maturity level, the compatibility, but there are things you do have to take in consideration when there are age gaps. So do you want to talk about that any, Tom-Tom?
Yeah, I was just gonna say when you said something about age is nothing but a number, I wouldn't suggest doing the R. Kelly and
No, I
Aaliyah
was not going to
thing.
go there. Right, right.
Yeah.
And I almost not said that. Yeah, not that. We're
But
talking an adult situation.
right,
Situation. We're not talking about, you know, I know you're referring to the Aaliyah song, but yeah, we are talking about in normal, healthy situations, healthy scenarios,
right,
adult situations, where legal situations, you know,
right. But we ain't trying to have nobody go to jail and say they listening to us and got them there. No, we
but
don't want that.
no, we're not responsible for that now.
No,
We're not
you go
responsible
to
for
jail
your
on your own.
misinterpretation. Yeah,
Right.
you're making it very, very clear what the nature of this empowerment segment is about. We are talking about adults
Yeah.
and promoting wholeness and harmony and compatibility and really divine alignment, divine will. So yeah, we're not going into those other spaces, but yeah. So going back to the age, the age is just a number, but with that you still have to there are some considerations, because that's kind of a vague statement too. It's just not age is number. Okay, well, that's true, but even though that may be factual, because it is just a number, but how do those numbers play a part in your relationship dynamics? How do they affect it? And then when we think about it, sometimes even with the different age variations, is it really the age that is the I guess the falling factor of why relationships fail? Is it really the age, or is it?
Nope. It's
Okay.
more, it's the mentality of both of the people involved in the relationship.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And relationship experience level.
There you go, relationship experience level. So let's talk about that. All right. So do you feel that someone who is very seasoned in relationships, and who've had an abundance of relationships, and someone who hasn't, do you feel like that other person needs more experience in relationships before they settle down with someone who has had a variety of relationships?
Well, speaking from experience, yeah, I would recommend that. Don't go out there and get yourself in the most complicated situation that you can find, especially for your first relationship, where you got a woman that's a pretty good bit, a man that's pretty good bit older than you, been on their own for longer than you, experienced the world, got more life experience than you, raised kids, you on your own, for the first time, and just like in my case, I was on my own for the first time. I mean, I moved out of the house at 18, but until I was 25, I always had a roommate and had to share living space with somebody. And I at 25, I finally got my own place and started trying to get adjusted to living in my own space with just me. And zero relationship experience, and then I go out and find something that's real complicated, and ended up getting in over my head.
Yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I'm sure many can resonate with that. Several have definitely been in those situations, but that's great empowerment. Is you do have to weigh those things out. Someone who has a lot of experience versus someone who doesn't. And then I know some will probably.
And it's easier for the person with all the experiences to set these trajectories up.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is, right. In a very controlling, manipulative way. It may not start off like that, but
No,
people have their defaults and sometimes aren't even aware of what they're doing. So they're, yeah, again, like anything, you have to really be mindful, be prayerful, and just kind of weigh it out. But something I like that you mentioned in terms of getting yourself in over your head is because when you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge a certain way, and then you basically get in relationships trying to wing it. You wing it, you're gonna get wing it results, or thinking that you know a little bit more than you don't until you get in, than you do until you get in and find out, whoa, okay,
right.
I bit off more
And
than I can chew, especially with someone who
yeah,
is is older. Um, and yeah, it's it can
and
be interesting.
that's how you, and that's how you end up with health problems and blood pressures of the 180 over 130 at 26.
Woo,
You know, from and you know, stroke level blood pressure. You
right.
know, in danger of having a stroke, you know, being too stressed out from all those things and from carrying burdens that you're too young to carry.
Right. And then that's unfortunate too, especially if being with someone older, because why are you even carrying their burdens a certain way? You know, that's why is it a burden situation? Because most of the time in cases like that, it's not about just the age difference. It is, well, it is to a certain extent, but it's just what are the burdens about, especially if it's financially, which, you know, we talked about that in a couple of other segments. Is why doesn't the older person in a sense have their stuff more together, who's had a little bit more time? And I know some people are, well, that don't start there. That's not right. Because, you know, we got economy stuff. We have all these different dynamics and things that, you know, happen that don't really have anything to do with the price of tea in China. Well, yes and no. And then the reason why I say yes and no is because yes, there are dynamics that are happening for sure. But how is that person being within the situation? Because if people are putting burdens on other people for financial responsibilities or even emotional responsibilities or different things like that, and they're the older person too, yeah, that's, you need to reassess that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah, because like I said, that, you know, woo, that's some stressful stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. It definitely can be. It definitely can be. Um, but I want to say this in terms of the positive aspects of the compatibility with couples who have the different age, um, you know, different age variations for sure, age gaps, I should say, is that there's a lot to appreciate from both sides. And those relationships definitely can work. And I've seen many that have, but then there are the ones that certainly, you know, they don't stand a chance, I feel, out of the gate, you know. Um, and most of the time you can easily spot those, but then sometimes they do, you have some where they start off good and then it just kind of just goes awry for sure. And in a lot of cases, it does have to do with the age, because there are some times where even younger people will pursue older people and kind of convince them to give them a chance or give them a shot. And then they do, and the relationships can be fine for, you know, for a while. And then the younger person then decides, oh, I kind of want to date somebody closer to my age. When you got the older person who's now dedicated time to you to, and yeah, so your thoughts around that, Tom? These conversations can get so deep, you know.
Well, for starters, that's kind of in my bloodline. You know, with me and I get, at least on my dad's side of the family, you know, with men being with women that's a little bit older than them, and then No, it's just it just ended up happening that way. And then with me, that was my preference at first, but and so that was
Has
all I
that, let me ask you a
pursued.
question. Has, you said your preference at first, has that changed based on the scenario, or would you still consider that to be an option? But just
I
different
don't ever
scenarios.
rule that out. I wouldn't.
Oh,
No,
good.
I wouldn't say it's not an option. I don't. But I mean,
But the
and
preference would
you
be
just
someone
gotta be.
closer to the age, huh?
No, you just well, whoever. But no, you just can't. You just can't rule certain things out and limit your options.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. I agree. Yeah. That's yeah. So you've got a lot of experience from when you were in your 20s versus now in your 40s. That's a whole lot more maturity and understanding around the different dynamics. And again, going back to, the age difference factor, yeah, it just, things can work. And sometimes it just doesn't boil down to it's an age difference. Sometimes, as you mentioned, it's a mentality difference. Because you can have people who are the same age, and if that compatibility is no longer there, then the relationship won't be. And then vice versa, if it's someone younger or older. Yeah, it's just going to really come down to how people are aligned, and will continue to align and evolve together. Because honestly, that's what breaks relationships down, is that lack of evolution. And I've done segments about this on my own, and then we've done a few segments where we hit on that. But it's interesting how people get a little bit unraveled by that. And believe it or not, even primarily even in the Christian community, where they don't understand the reason why a lot of Christian marriages are not lasting is because there is a lack of the evolving together. And I don't know why that is so baffling. I guess people hear the word evolution and they get one-sided with it. Maybe they start thinking in terms of monkey into man type of, and it has nothing to do with that. It's about growth and expansive transformation. And if couples are not evolving together, they're not going to stay together. They can pray together all day long, but faith without works is dead. And prayer without action in terms of being responsible and increasing in growth and continuing. Even we're supposed to keep growing in the fruit of the Spirit. So if we're supposed to keep growing in this fruit of the Spirit, how is there not growing in a relationship the same way? That is evolution, for it to become something new, right?
Right.
Yeah, so but anyway, but I mean, that's interesting though. I've definitely seen it where people are like, no, families that pray together stay together. Yes, families that pray together and couples that pray together can stay together, but prayer alone is not going to be enough if you don't actually take action based on what you're praying about. And let me hit on this because this is coming up, so I'm going to go with it. And I know you know this to be true too. You have several people who are definitely praying, and they are praying even about their relationships outside of the will of God. They're praying for their own control and their own, scenarios to work out a certain way, and creating dynamics for, yes, I'm going to pray about this and we can stay together. But if you're praying in a way that's not in alignment, and even though that person may be staying with you, but if you're doing something to control and manipulate, or even practicing witchcraft or different things for people to stay, yeah, just because you've prayed doesn't mean that that is within the will, the divine will, for you to be actually with this person still, especially when you start violating things, you start violating on those different levels. And I don't care what any, minister, pastor says. I'm a minister too, and I've definitely put this out there. When there are certain lines that get crossed, where there are grounds for those types of separations, okay? And people can pray all day, but again, if people are not evolving together, then they will evolve apart. Well, not evolve apart, they just won't be together. You know, there's a statement that Usher would say, you either evolve or evaporate. And a lot of relationships are evaporating due to lack of evolution. We'll have to come back in another segment and talk about that.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
you took the words. I'm just gonna say you took the words right out of my mouth. And it's a segment that we did in the past. We both agreed that, you know, the families that pray together don't always stay together. The key
Nope.
is the family evolving together.
Right. Yeah. This is deep.
So it's not being one outgrow the other one, and then they just become dead weight.
They just become dead weight. But then, you know, that you're going to have ones that say, yeah, but it says that for better or for worse.
Like, yeah, and yeah, that's true for you.
No, that's not just true for you. That's what the Bible says. Now, what are you talking about here?
Well, now
The
you
vow
just,
said for better for worse.
well, now you just twisting the scriptures for your own benefit.
Basically, yeah. And I would say to anyone, don't ever let anybody's interpretation mislead you in what's true for you.
Woo, that's powerful. I'm gonna have to write that one down.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna need you to repeat that one more time.
I have a whole teaching on that, you know, not just in terms of relationship dynamics, just in general, you know. Don't allow anybody else's interpretation, basically, to lead you away from what is true for you, because how they're interpreting that may not be relevant for what God is doing in your life, you know. And it's just a level of scripture that they're understanding. And yes, that level is a level, but there are different not interpretations, there are multi-levels to different variations of scripture. So it doesn't always just mean this one thing. That's, you know, being able to unpack that word in a different way. Don't get me started. I'll start going into a whole nother mode here.
You need to make a meme out of that.
Make a meme out of that
phrase. Yeah, you need to make a meme out of that phrase.
Okay, I should do that. I actually have teachings and trainings and stuff, you know, on that. I made a vow to myself many years ago.
I can't wait to dive into them trainings.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I made a vow to myself many years ago that I would not allow someone else's interpretation to govern what I knew was going to be true for me in terms of what divine will was for me. And of course, someone who has, you know, the background that I do with being in ministry and, you know, going to 2 Bible colleges and very entrenched in different things. I know the different variations of interpretations. You know, at one point I was called the walking commentary. So very sound in terms of doctrine and all these different things. But what I do know is that we are in the era of individuality in terms of the new thing that God is doing. And the reason why this is important in terms of relationships too is because even when people are entering into relationships and enter into relationships even with other Christian, because it's not to be unequally yoked, but you can be unequally yoked with believers.
Yeah. Seen that happen.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so there's a lot, of course, that goes into all of this. But yeah, the thing is that don't allow, whether it's society, whether it's religion, to their systems, because there are systems, understand this, systems that are laced, some in terms of leveraging spirituality for control. So
Mhm.
you have to know what is going to be right for you. And that's in terms of your relationship that you have with the Most High, or however you see that for yourself. And even in marriages, people use and leverage scriptures and other spiritual texts to do what? To bind spouses. Seen it, been there, done that.
Woo.
Okay. So we talk about the hard topics, things that continue to be unmasked, that people don't really want to come to the truth, that will set them free. Now, it may startle you before it sets you free. But if you want to be free indeed, then you would welcome truth. So back to what we were talking about earlier, in terms of even age differences, is don't allow society to give you an interpretation of, no, you should only be with people who are in your age bracket or race or this. However, you have to do what's right for you, what's divinely right for you. So I want to plug that in, because we want people making divinely right aligned decisions, not in just relationships that they enter into, but also how you continue to grow in advance, to evolve in these relationships. If you're evolving, then the other person needs to be evolving too. Whether same age or not, evolution is required in relationships. Can I get an amen?
Yeah, amen.
Oh, wow. Well, Tom, I tell you, we definitely can talk about tons of things, and that's what we have these segments for, is not always to come and just have a set agenda, but to allow it to be very open and fluid and flexible, so that we just follow the guidance on what people most need to know during these times and what can make them more aware of how they can move forward, just shining the light, illuminating topics. So we've got a little over 6 minutes left. Is there anything else that you want to bring up that needs to be unmasked that we can talk about within the next 2 minutes or so?
No, I can't think of anything. We pretty much covered it all.
Yeah, we did.
We don't want to give them too much.
Yeah, that's true. Because when we start introducing these uncommon topics, yeah, definitely is enough food for thought. Enough food for thought for others. I do.
And we want to get them.
Oh, absolutely. And I do want to mention that we have a playlist of this series. So please avail yourself to the playlist, and there'll be the link to that within the descriptions or in the comments section. But definitely go and check out a lot of these different segments, because you'll certainly be empowered for sure, and educated, some different levels. And we know, Tom, empowerment and education are very key to expansion.
Facts.
All right, Tom. So give us some type of wrapping up empowerment here, whether it's based on what we talked about or just something else you just want to make people aware of, in terms of what can help empower them for moving forward until our next segment.
Well, you already gave the empowerment by saying don't let anybody else's interpretations steer you away from what's true for you.
Yeah. So is that what you want them to take away? Is the biggest nugget here?
I think that's probably the most important thing you said in this whole segment.
Oh wow. Well, thank you. Well, that is the takeaway, ladies and gentlemen. That's the empowerment closing that Tom is recommending you know, from this particular segment. Yeah, we could do a whole another segment around that, even outside of the relationship dynamics. Like I said, I like actually teaching on that and helping the individuals to understand, to come into their own individuality into the most divine aligned way, you know, so that you can know what's true for you. God's truth is God's truth, but God's truth for you and other people it's a segmented truth categorized for you. So that's a whole nother topic, but all of that still comes back to relationship dynamics, whether your relationship with the Most High, your relationship, how it plays out with other people, because sometimes your interpretations or misinterpretations of things can jack some stuff up in relationships. I better close it out there because that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
All right, so we have unmasked yeah, some dynamics today, like we always do, especially when Tom-Tom is in these segments. We definitely go in on some different topics that kind of outside the other segments where some of my other celebrity-preneurs are with me. We touch on things, but when Tom-Tom and I come together, it's raw, rare and raw, right?
Oh yeah. All the time.
It's a rarity and it's raw. All right. Okay. Thank you, Tom-Tom, again. Always, I appreciate you tremendously, the wisdom and empowerment that you bring to this series. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right. So we are going to close out and look forward to you joining us for more segments within this series. As I mentioned, there will be information within the description. Also, you'll find out more about Tom-Tom, how you can connect with him, and also the playlist. So I'm going to send you away with many blessings. And again, allow yourself to have the interpretation that is true for you. Unmask that some more so that you aren't masked up in something that someone else is trying to give to you, a success template for you to play out, because that would be masking your greatness. So with that being said, stay blessed and we'll be back again with you soon. Take care.